After his bad experiences with real-life girls, Masamune swore he would stay clear of any 3D girls and only dedicate his love and affection to the 2D girls in his manga books and anime shows. That is until Ririsa barges into his life. She's a newbie cosplayer who asks for his help to make her dreams come true. With Ririsa cosplaying Masamune's favorite 2D character, she has now become a 2.5D girl. Will this break Masamune's conviction? Tune in and find out. Hey guys, we're back with another shoujo anime recap video. We really hope you'll enjoy this one because we've worked so hard on it just for you. We honestly couldn't do this without your amazing support. It means everything to us. So please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss out on our future videos. We really need your support. Thank you so much. Our story starts with the glorification of the cosplay culture, which mostly features female cosplayers in skimpy outfits and male photographers running about with their cameras. Then again, cosplaying is a serious business that shouldn't be taken lightly, which I may or may not have been a part of at some point. Anyways, those girls are not the protagonists of this story, though. The scene then focuses on the real protagonist, Masamune, who also happens to be the president and only member of the manga club at his school. While his schoolmates are getting busy trying to recruit new members to their clubs, he hides himself in the club room, obsessing over his favorite 2D character, Liliel. Suddenly, a four-eyed girl disturbs his peace, much to Masamune's surprise. Her name is Ririsa, a first-year student who hopes to enter the club. At first, Masamune is apprehensive about her presence, but after he discovers that she is also an otaku, as much as he is, not to mention her favorite character being Liliel as well, he just couldn't not accept her. However, as it turns out, Ririsa has more spunk than she first let on. Believing that Masamune is someone who could help and understand her, Ririsa reveals that she's actually passionate about cosplaying and is in fact dreaming of making her own cosrome. After revealing her secret that she allegedly had not shared with anyone before, Ririsa asks Masamune if he could become her photographer. At first, Masamune was reluctant, but after Ririsa cosplayed Liliel in front of him, once again he can't just say no. In fact, he even takes photos of her in his phone for test shoots, and she loved every piece of it. After an unexpected accident that made Masamune feel super awkward, he heads out first, leaving Ririsa on her own with a racing heart. The next day, we are introduced to the supermodel Mikari, who also happens to be a new transfer student claiming to hate manga and who seems to be somehow related to Masamune. Meanwhile, at the manga club, Ririsa informs Masamune about the new transfer student in her class. She excitedly tells him how the new student is perfect to cosplay as her partner. The conversation then turned to whether Masamune was really willing to be her photographer or not. When Masamune told her that he was in fact taking this role as seriously as he can, she asked him to take more pictures of her for practice using the club's camera. Unfortunately, she didn't have her costumes with her, so she decided to just make do with her school uniform. Everything seemed to be going well until she saw the pictures that Masamune took and felt so self-conscious. Later that afternoon, after an accident in the hallway involving Mikari and her admirers, the supermodel unexpectedly found her way to the manga club room. She excitedly hugged Masamune, revealing that she's actually a tsundere and hiding the fact that she's head over heels for him. As it turns out, Mikari is Masamune's childhood friend. Back when they were still kids, Masamune had saved her from bullies, and ever since then she'd always wanted to attract his attention. And when she realized that Masamune only had eyes for 2D girls, she actually made an effort to cater to his hobbies. That is up until 5 years ago when she was scouted to become a model and had to leave the city to pursue a career. Mikari had hoped that 5 years would be enough to change him, but as it so happens, he's still the same. Despite everything, though, she realized that she still can't hate him and is still very much into him, and so she leaves him in the club room with bittersweet tears. Not long after, Mikari found herself on the rooftop where she had the perfect view of the club room and of Masamune. She was ecstatic to find the spot, that is, until she saw a girl entering the club room. With no time to waste, Mikari dashes into the club room. The scene she saw the moment she opened the door sent her into tears. Masamune was blushing while holding a camera and in the act of taking pictures of the girl. Mikari was so upset that she started hitting Masamune and would have probably continued doing so if it weren't for Ririsa calling out to her and pointing out how they are in the same class. Once Ririsa finally caught her attention, she then asks Mikari if she wants to cosplay with her. That was when the supermodel took a good look at Ririsa and asked if she's Liliel. Ririsa explained to the stunned Mikari that she's cosplaying Liliel and was even generous enough to educate the supermodel on what it's all about. After some back and forth between the trio and Ririsa explaining to her the situation between her and Masamune, Mikari eventually agreed to cosplay with her for the cosrom. At first, Mikari demanded that she wants to be Liliel, seeing as it's Masamune's favorite character. Although she had no choice but to concede after seeing that appearance-wise, Ririsa is the best choice to cosplay the blonde angel. That said, she accepted cosplaying Miriella, another character in the Ashford Chronicles, and just so happens to be Liliel's bestie. Well, it's not like Mikari hates the character. In fact, growing up, she couldn't help but sympathize with Miriella's character, who had an unrequited love for the main character Ashford, who in turn is in love with Liliel, much like the situation the trio are in at the moment. Mikari was amazed at Ririsa's dedication after she stayed up late last night just to finish the Miriella costume, not to mention its Liliel counterpart, especially since Ririsa was pretty particular with the detail, insisting that the fans would definitely notice it if she wasn't. Although reluctant at first to wear the super skimpy costume, Mikari eventually gets into character as she poses and acts as Miriella while showing her affection for Ashford, in this case to Masamune, not long after they started taking pictures for the cosrom. Unfortunately, the photo session eventually ended in a failure after Mikari tells Ririsa that she can't use the photos they took together for public use since it would go against her contract as a model. Ririsa was of course upset that the photos will just end up being shelved. Nevertheless, she'll definitely cherish them. Mikari also admitted that she doesn't mind doing the group cosplay again with Ririsa. After all, in a way it was a step closer to getting Masamune to look at her the way that she wants to. As for Ririsa, she couldn't help feeling something strange seeing Mikari and Masamune chat together, although she chose to ignore it for now. On a different note, Ririsa tells Masamune that, even excluding the unusable photos they took with Mikari, they still have enough photos to make a proper cosrom. They have to work overtime though if they want to finish preparing the photos and sold it in the upcoming event which Ririsa had also booked a space for. There was just about a week left, and they had to edit about 500 photos. Although it was Ririsa who had to do all the major works, Masamune made sure that he's always there to support her by doing the menial tasks. Fast forward to a week later, Ririsa finally managed to finish editing all the pictures for the cosrom, and what's left is just to burn them into the DVDs. Both Ririsa and Masamune are just really glad that the week-long preparation for the event is finally over. Speaking of the event, Ririsa informs Mikari about it. Of course, Mikari was flustered and was prompt to ask Ririsa how she feels about Masamune. Ririsa honestly answers that Masamune feels like the character Ashford, who is always there to support and help Liliel achieve her dreams. That was when Mikari realized that perhaps Ririsa might already be feeling something for Masamune, although she's still not aware of it herself. Later that evening, Masamune was conflicted if he should treat the event as some sort of date between him and Ririsa, since in a way it really is. As it turns out, he wasn't alone, and Ririsa was also feeling the same. Fortunately, Mikari was there to the rescue. After Ririsa asked her to put together a date-worthy OOTD for the event, she eventually meets Masamune at the train station and was even praised for being fashionable by him. Fashionable outfits aside, the two of them arrived at the area 4 hours earlier than the official start of the event. They were so early that all the stores and shops in the area were still closed or had just closed, so they didn't really have anywhere to hang out. After Ririsa hurt her feet while they were looking for a place to stay, they decided to stop outside a convenient store to rest and just watch the most recent episode of their favorite anime. Time flew by fast, and it was finally time for them to enter the event hall. When they finally got into their booth, Ririsa realized that she had forgotten to make the posters, cards, covers, and all the other necessary items they'd need to attract customers. Although she can just cosplay like everyone else, Ririsa is hesitant seeing, as there are tons of veteran cosplayers around, and she might just end up not getting attention at all. Right next to their booth are the duo Majino the cosplayer and Ogino, her trusted photographer and partner, both of which are very much into the event and sparing no wasted energy to promote Majino and her cosrom. In contrast to Ririsa and Masamune's bare booth with a non-cosplaying Ririsa, that it was no wonder no one were willing to buy from them. Although reluctant at first, Masamune finally gives his heartfelt speech, encouraging Ririsa to put on her costume and do a cosplay before the end of the event. It was an embarrassing speech that indirectly turned into a skit, which attracted the people around them and somehow promoted their booth. To put it nicely, that is. Anyways, thanks to Masamune's words, Ririsa was convinced to give a last hurrah as she quickly went to the changing room to prepare. As she did, she noticed how she'd forgotten a lot of items, which made her once again lose all hope. To her surprise, however, the other cosplayers around her offered to give her their spare items without asking anything in return other than promising to someday return the favor to someone else who might be in the same situation. Not long after, with everyone's help, she's finally ready to head back to her partner as Li Liel. Despite Ririsa's fears from earlier, the photographers in the hallway turned their eyes on her direction as she exited the dressing room, running straight to Masamune's direction. Phew, that was something! Are you enjoying the video so far? Did you also find Li Liel cute? If you're enjoying the video, please make sure to give us a thumbs up and subscribe. It really means a lot to us. Immediately, Ririsa's cosplay of Li Liel became the center of attention, with all the cosplay fans and photographers lining up to get a chance to take a photo of her. Even Ogino was full of praises and took a spot for himself. As for Masamune, he was so proud of Ririsa for overcoming her fears as she posed for the crowd using all the original manga poses of Li Liel. Although there were some who kept on commenting how she's awkward at posing, only real Li Liel fans like Ogino could tell just how much Ririsa loved her character. After the event was over, her fellow cosplayers only had praises for Ririsa as well. The conversation then turned into recounting their personal horror stories and struggles as cosplayers. That said, Ririsa is so happy and grateful for everyone's help and promised that she'd attend the next cosplay event again. Since it had gotten late, Ririsa and Masamune had to meet at the train station. As soon as Ririsa got there, however, she began calling out for Elf Onisan, who lent her the ruffle shorts earlier. The Elf Onisan turned out to be Eri, a closet otaku who had no choice but to show herself, since she worked in an office around the area and Ririsa's hunt could potentially expose her secret. Eri also happens to be one of the two cosplayers that Ririsa met when she was still in middle school, the other cosplayer being Mayura, who was also Ririsa's inspiration and idol. That's why the young cosplayer could help but feel upset when she heard that Mayura had already retired as a cosplayer. But despite feeling disappointed, Ririsa is positive that as long as she keeps cosplaying in events, eventually, she'll be able to meet Mayura again someday. Speaking of being positive, as it turns out, it wasn't just Masamune, but also Ririsa, who are too dense to recognize the feelings they're starting to have for each other. Ririsa confidently declared that her love for Masamune is just as her cosplay partner, and so Masamune also interpreted his own as such. Guess Mikari's the only one happy for this development. As for Mikari, she was loitering outside the clubroom the following school day, worrying whether Ririsa had finally confessed her feelings for Masamune during the event or not. To her surprise, she came upon Ririsa inside, who was halfway through getting dressed for another cosplay photo shoot. Mikari was relieved to find out that despite everything, Ririsa still hadn't figured out that she's actually already falling for their senpai. Anyways, Ririsa had to put her uniform back on after she was summoned for her remedial classes. With Ririsa gone and Mikari the only one in the room with all of the Li Liel costumes, the supermodel decided to try them on and see how she'll look in it. And what do you know? Masamune just so happens to arrive in the room as soon as Mikari finished getting dressed. At first, Mikari thought that her cosplaying didn't affect Masamune, but soon realized that it actually did. Somehow. This once again encouraged her that someday she'll probably be able to get the boy to look at her the way she wants. Not long after, Ririsa also returns to the room and was really impressed by Mikari's cosplay. Fast forward to a few days later. Masamune meets with Ogino, who he asks to teach him photography skills. The older guy was generous enough that he also shared with Masamune some cosplay know-hows like the information about the top 4 cosplayers. And with the rumors of one of them retiring, there are talks that perhaps Ririsa would be the perfect candidate to take the spot. Majino and Ogino taught Masamune how important a photographer's role is to a cosplayer and how important it is that both the cosplayer and photographer had the perfect understanding of each other's personalities. And it was thanks to the two of them that Masamune was inspired to take his role as Ririsa's partner more seriously. The following school day, Masamune and Ririsa were psyching themselves up for their future cosplay events and activities when someone knocked on their club room door. The visitors were the student council representatives who informed them that the Manga Club is going to lose their club room, seeing as they had not complied with the requirements to deserve it, and for the last 3 years at that. Not only will their club be demoted to a meeting group, their club room will also be given to the Aquarium Club, who had just gained the qualifications to become a full-fledged club. Masamune felt responsible for the club's situation, especially when his senpais had already mentioned it to him before. Not wanting to lose the place that'll help Ririsa fulfill her dream, Masamune promised the younger girl that he'll do something about their problem. And so, Masamune went to the student council office where he was given a list of guidelines that they'll have to comply if they want to keep their club status. Most of them seemed to be doable except for the club advisor. The manga club president went to the available faculty to ask if someone was willing to take them in, but had no luck. That is until one of the teachers suggested that he ask the new teacher named Han Yu. To Masamune's surprise, the new home ec teacher, Han Yu, is in fact the cosplayer Mayura, whom Ririsa idolizes a lot. She had retired from cosplaying so she can officially join the workforce. After all, what kind of teacher goes around cosplaying and dressed up in sexy costumes, right? Unfortunately, even though Masamune informed her that their club's interests centered on manga and cosplay, Mayura was adamant that she won't take part of it. This forced Masamune to use dirty tricks by baiting Mayura with a copy of her own costume, which turned out great in the end, seeing as Mayura is smitten by Ririsa the moment she saw her in the clubroom cosplaying as Liliel. Then again, although Mayura agreed to be their advisor, it wouldn't be enough to solve their clubroom problem since they still have to write a report that would include relevant club activities. Masamune had some ideas, although it was an epic fail. Anyways, Mayura suggested that they do a community service reading manga to the local elementary school kids. On their first day, the two struggled since the kids won't even give them a glance, much more listen. Fortunately, they were able to solve this dilemma by having Ririsa cosplay as a Liliel in PG, of course, and have her read to the kids. The effect was phenomenal, and Masamune was finally able to take good photos for their club activity documentations. A few days later, Masamune was finally able to complete the report for the student council, although just when they were about to turn it in, Ririsa raised a concern, to which Masamune seemed to agree as well. The following day, Masamune and Ririsa informed their advisor that they won't be sending the report about the manga reading activity they did as a club activity, much to Mayura's astonishment. In return for not submitting the community service they did for the elementary kids, Masamune and Ririsa decided to participate in the Yokosuka cosplay event and use that in their activity report instead. Mayura was against it, seeing as she already had a first-hand experience of how the society in general treats cosplayers like them. She was pretty sure that there's a good chance it won't be accepted by the student council. But Ririsa was determined to go through with it, and Masamune was right behind her. Eventually, Mayura was convinced, although she warns them that they should perform well in the event, if not be the best. We are then introduced to a new character, who also happens to be one of the top 4 cosplay queens. Nagomi. She's a pro cosplayer who cosplays popular characters and is sponsored by a huge company. Just her presence alone is bound to raise the bar for the cosplayers in the event. A few days later, the day of the event arrived. Fortunately, Majino and Ogino are also there to guide Ririsa and Masamune. On their way to the dressing room, however, Majino and Ririsa encounters Nagomi, who seemed to recognize Ririsa as the one who cosplayed Liliel. The conversation was friendly at first, until Nagomi started being too sensitive, as if wanting to start a drama of sorts. Although Ririsa tried to not let it affect her, it was obvious that Nagomi's words got to her. Even Majino could tell how Ririsa's confidence was really hurt by Nagomi's dissing. As for Ogino and Masamune, they were discussing a strategy to maximize their chances of attracting people to their booths and, in turn, their respective cosplayers. Although nervous, Masamune was fully prepared to do his best. Phew. With the introduction of new characters, the story also gets more interesting. Here's a question for you. Did cosplaying ever cross your mind? Halloween costumes doesn't count though. Please share us your thoughts in the comments below. Using the excuse that she's attending the event to support her students, Mayuri couldn't help but get overwhelmed after once again coming to a cosplay event. Especially in this particular building that she's been to countless of times already, her body seemed to get into auto drive as she moved around. Meanwhile, Nagomi expresses her worries regarding Ririsa. She admitted to her managers how the young cosplayer reminded her of Mayura, the one cosplayer she couldn't ever beat despite giving it her best to cosplay. The worst part is that Mayura even suddenly retired. With regards to Ririsa, the pro cosplayer believes that if her words were enough to bring down Ririsa's confidence, then she's not going to survive in the cosplaying business. Unfortunately, Nagomi's words really did have a huge effect on Ririsa's mental and emotional state, to the point that she hadn't even started preparing even when everyone else was just about done. Not long after Majino joins Masamune and Ogino, and together they witness just how a pro cosplayer grabs the attention of people. Despite Nagomi's character being new and barely had any information available, she was still able to embody it and make it her very own. Back to Ririsa, she informs her senpai that she couldn't find her Liliel skirt. Masamune immediately went to her side to try and console her along with Majino and Ogino. However, it only resulted in Ririsa getting more depressed with Nagomi's words still weighing heavily in her head. After Ririsa and Masamune almost got into an argument, the boy left Ririsa by herself with Majino and Ogino. That was when Mayura revealed herself and tried to do what she was supposed to do as their club advisor, only for Ririsa to once again make her realize another valuable lesson instead. Mayura then left Ririsa on her own, only to return shortly after wearing the costume that she was supposed to debut in the previous winter comiquette. Once again, Mayura tried to do her job as the club advisor as she tried to bring back Ririsa's confidence, and along the way made the young girl realize that the cosplayer Mayura and her home ec teacher Mayura are one and the same. Just then, Masamune arrives with the cosplayer who accidentally took Ririsa's skirt. After a dramatic and cringy speech from Masamune, Ririsa finally gained the confidence to once again try to cosplay for the event. The only problem is that Nagomi's photoshoot is about to end, which means the majority of the people attending the event will also be going home. That's to say, by the time Ririsa finished getting ready, the spectators and the audience would have long disappeared. This time, it was Mayura who came to the rescue as she once again reveals herself and hints that it's her turn to help. If you wanted to know what happens next and you're enjoying our content, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Your support will help our channel grow and encourage us to make more videos. You're the best, guys! See you in the next video.